Right. So today let us start with this market based energy efficiency modeling for thermal power sector. Is all right. So morning, if you recall what I said is that whenever we are having any situation in industrial environment, wherever some energy efficiency related issues are coming, the very first consideration is that is it end of pipe or is it a sustainable methodology, such as some sort of really going for green technology or something like that. But even if you go for green technology, there are certain situations where you really have to consider whether we are using the appropriate trade off, because if you do not use appropriate trade off, possibilities are that in spite of having a sustainable method, we may not achieve the desired target, right. One such example is what is known as a rebound effect. The rebound effect is, like I said, that fuel efficiency is improved. So we expect less pollution in the transportation sector, but because of the very fact that you have reduced fuel efficiency, people use cars for longer distances, and they use the car more because it is more cost effective. Is it all right? And in the long run, the effective pollution is even more. It's all right. So therefore, it is a good practice that not only you go for green technology, go for sustainable methods, but also see that a proper trade off is obtained. In other words, go for certain measures. Those measures really help the organizations to go for green technology and see that the consumers are also not using it beyond a point. But obviously, the example that I am giving on the thermal power sector, here we are not talking of consumers, it is about the industry per se. Now, the work that we are going to discuss, this is from the 2017 PhD thesis of Dr. Nihar Ranjan Sahu. Now, the thesis title was Evaluation of Market Based Energy Efficiency Policy of India, a case of thermal power sector. Is all right. Now, Mr. Dr. Nihar Ranjan Sahu, he was actually working in the environmental board in Odisha. Is all right. He is a senior person, and he did this PhD jointly under my guidance and under Professor Pratip K.J. Mahapatra, who was a very senior professor of our department. Recently, he has retired and he is with IIT Bhubaneswar, right, as a visiting faculty member. So this is the work on which I am showing the rest of the slides. So most of these slides that I will be showing today are from Dr. Nihar Ranjan Sahu's work. Is all right, under me and Professor Mahapatra guidance. But some of these slides I have taken from the ministry sites, the energy sector sites, particularly explaining the PAT scheme. Is all right. That is what one of the major points which I am going to discuss today. Is it all right? Now, this background, first of all, let us see the background of what is the situation of let us say the greenhouse gases situations, particularly in the context of India. So, as you can see that India is the fourth largest GHG emitter in the world, right, and the per capita GHG emission in India is 1/4 of global average. So, it is very high, it is very high, and we have in fact some other data really shows that even compared to global average, the Indian performance is not average, it is worse than average. Is all right. So, Indian annual emission is more than 1700 million ton of carbon dioxide equivalent, and about 1100 million tons of these are coming from energy sector only. So, it is substantial. Is it all right? and India committed for voluntary reduction of emission intensity and formulated National Action Plan on Climate Change. Is it all right? So, India is part of a National Action Plan on Climate Change. Is it all right? Now, when it comes to climate change, let me also mention here that IIT Kharagpur has also taken a major position on the climate change initiative, and IIT Kharagpur already having an environment engineering center. Is it all right? Apart from that, there is also specific focus on climate change. Is it all right? After the planning commission is decommissioned and Niti Aayog has been started, the Niti Aayog has taken several initiatives, particularly with regard to climate change. Is all right? And IIT Kharagpur is one of the very major player in this climate change initiatives of Indian government. Is all right? So, lot of work is also being done in IIT Kharagpur. We are industrial engineering department, so we mainly do modeling and simulation related work, but actual implementation work is being done by civil engineering professors and also the Center of Environmental Engineering, apart from other groups like Coral and other such groups, right. They are actually working in the field, all right. Apart from, obviously, other departments are also taking part in some way or the other, right, in their own field. Now, the action plan of climate change basically is basically going for an emission reduction through efficiency upgradation is really required. So, the performance, achieve and trade, a market based policy is introduced for efficiently improvement is in this regard, right. What is that? Essentially, it is an efficiency upgradation scheme, right. So, what is efficiency upgradation? Let's look at it in a slightly more detail. Now, market based energy efficiency schemes, they are essentially available in many countries. Many countries have already gone for this kind of thing. See, what is really happening? What is really happening is that if I look at the industries can be given specific target. So, they are operating at a certain energy level, right. They are using energy. See what is happening. If you look at, every organization is using energy in some form and converting that energy to a product. So, one side is energy, another side is product. Now, for a given amount of product, how much of energy are they using? Is it high or is it low? So, their current usage can be called as a baseline performance. So, baseline is basically the current level of usage. So, if you give them a certain target, who will fix the target? There should be a national accrediting body, all right. So, these national accrediting body should give specific target to this organization and they have to fulfill that target in a stipulated time. Suppose they do not fulfill the target, then what they have to do? Or suppose they fulfill the target, then what is the reward for them? That is where this certification comes in, right. We are giving what is known as, we means that accrediting body, they will be giving an energy saving certificate. Is it all right? This energy saving certificate will be obtained by whom? Companies who fulfill the target, right. So, if someone fulfills the target or overachieves, based on their overachievement, they will be given certain certificates, and those companies or industries who do not fulfill, they have to compensate in the form of a penalty. So, what is that penalty? They have to buy those certificates. So, there will be companies who are underachievers, they will be buying certificates, and those who are overachiever, they will be getting certificates. Is it all right? So, those who are purchasing certificates, they have to pay money for that. So, that is the penalty or the fine they are paying, and those companies who are having certificates, they are gaining in the form of money, because equivalent money is coming to them. Is it all right? Now, so this is like a sort of incentive for better performance and disincentive for worse performance. That is the essential scheme. But then there is also an issue of what is known as normalization. Now, what is normalization? Normalization is that you see, while setting a target, you have to see that whether it is an achievable target. If you give somebody very easy target, then they will achieve it easily. So, you are giving them a certain advantage that look here, you have achieved the target, but if it is an easy target, then they achieve easily. So, you are giving reward to somebody for an easy achievement. Suppose for some other company you set a difficult target, then that company will feel, look here, I have been given a difficult target and I could not fulfill, so I am being penalized. Whereas, another company who has easily fulfilled the target because the target was easy, they are getting rewarded. This is injustice. That is where the normalization comes in. That while fixing the target, you have to really see that it is equally hard or equally easy to all the company or all the industry which are participating in the process. I hope I am clear what is normalization. So, normalization is a process which has to be applied uniformly for all the companies by the accrediting body, by looking into the fact that the target achievement is equally easy or equally difficult for all the companies. So, it is a level playing ground. That level playing ground has to be ascertained. Is it all right? So, this is what is essentially happening. But there is another issue that is also coming in. The issue is that suppose everybody is achieving target, nobody is is there who is really underperforming. What will be happening then? Then everybody has to be rewarded, but these reward who will give? Where from the money will come? Have you understood the question? Everybody is doing well, so you have to give prize to everybody in the form of certificates. Now, certificates have a cost, a market value. So, this money equivalent to the certificates you are giving to everybody, somebody has to pay. Who is that somebody? That somebody is government. So, essentially you are moving to a region of subsidy. Understand? So, basically you are giving to subsidy to everybody because everybody is achieving target. But you cannot run an industry or every industry in a subsidy mode, because end of the day subsidy has to come in the form of money from taxpayers, is it not, or from loan, is it not? Both have a tremendous effect on the economy. So, the ideal condition is that some should be achieving the target, others should not be achieving the target. That means, target should not be very easy. Let us take the other situation, that nobody is getting certificates, everybody is buying certificate, is it not? So, if that is so, if everybody underachieves, then obviously everybody has to pay penalty, which is also not good, is it not? So, it is a different situation where government earns money from all these industries in some form or the other, is it not? It is like an additional tax burden to these companies in the form of, let us say, carbon tax or whatever you call, because everybody is underachieving. So, people will not be having the urge to really improve. One hand is, see, if you keep fining everybody, then people will say, okay, let me pay fine and forget about it, rather than let me become efficient and not pay fine. So, you have to create a situation where everybody wants to achieve and not pay fine. Is it all right? So, it is very important what should be the price of these certificates. It is an important decision. Have you understood the intricacy here? So, target setting a price for the certificates is an involved issue. It is not an ordinary issue, right. For that, detailed analysis is required, and the thesis I am talking about has actually carried out such analysis. Is it all right? So, that is the thing. So, therefore, the acceptance of market based policies relies on the transaction cost. What should be the cost of these certificates, right? And uncertainties in certificate price is the key influencing factor for investment and trading decision. Lack of information and inadequate institutional capacity are impediments in PAT implementation, right. So, these are the issues that one should really think over. Now, a little bit from the ministry side, this is the Ministry of Power, National Action Plan on Climate Change. So, already I have talked about it, which can be called as NAPCC. The NAPCC, this is the broad idea. Within this broad idea, a specific idea is the National Mission for Enhanced Energy Efficiency, that is NMEEE, right. So, what is NMEEE? It is one part of the National Action Plan on Climate Change in India, right, and National Mission for Enhanced Energy Efficiency. So, within that 4 things are being thought of. What are they? Perform, achieve and trade, that is PAT, right, market transformation for energy efficiency MTEE, energy efficiency financing platform, that is EEFP, and finally, framework for energy efficient economic development, that is FEED. Is all right. So, these are the different initiatives that the ministry have taken for National Mission for Enhanced Energy Efficiency. Out of that, we are going to discuss only the first one. It is all right. That is the perform, achieve and trade, or PAT, right. So, perform, achieve and trade, that is PAT, like market based energy efficiency schemes are already implemented in various countries, right, starting from UK, then Australia, Belgium, France, Italy, Denmark, India and Poland, among other countries. UK was the first to really go for such kind of things in 2002, whereas India has implemented PAT only in 2012, right. So, we are not really early, but we are little late, but we are not the last. There are other what you call countries who have also implemented it later than India. So, already I told you, but here is not in nutshell what is this PAT or perform, achieve and trade. Setting a specific energy consumption target. So, specific energy consumption SEC is one of the major issue, reducing SEC within a period of 3 years. So, the targets are given for every 3-year period. 2012 it begins, 2015 the first set changed, and as the thesis was submitted in 2017. So, obviously, it took care of that first 3 years results. Now, it is 2019. So, obviously, one more result might have come. Then converting surplus SEC into tradable energy saving certificates or ESC is all right, and the overachievers earn certificates and underachievers acquire certificates or pay penalty, all right. So, this is the broad idea of PAT. Is all right. Is this clear till this point? All right. So, now look at this is the basic definition of PAT by Ministry of Power. So, it is the to reduce specific energy consumption in energy intensive industries such as thermal power generation industries. A market based mechanism is devised for certification in case of excess energy saving which is tradable. All right. So, this is the definition and I have already discussed you. Now, here is from the ministry side what has happened over the years, right. In 2001 the Energy Conservation Act was enabled and then the National Action Plan on Climate Change released, is all right, and then National Mission for Enhanced Energy Efficiency NMEEE approved by the Ministry of Power. The sector studies are commenced to identify DC. DC are the those specific industries who will be actually looking into them, and nationwide consultation workshops organized. Consultation continued through 2012. In 2009 baseline data collection begins. You have to collect data that what is happening. Then NMEEE approved by Prime Minister's Council on Climate Change. 2010 the financial outlay of over US $20 million approved, and then Energy Conservation Act amended to make provisions for issue of energy saving certificates, imposition of penalty for non-compliance and trading of ES certificates, that is energy saving certificates. And in 2012 the PAT scheme came into effect. First compliance period begins, that is 2012 to 15. So, that is the history and how it has taken the form. So, here is the example from ministry side which is really very much applicable to the coal sector, right. So, you can see that all forms of energy which you may call E, right, on one side which may be electricity, then FO and NG, I do not know really what are they, and coal and others in different units. So, all these are different energy sources and the other side is the product. So, a process, that is a plant, is using all of these energies and getting the product in that form, is all right. So, specific energy consumption can be defined as E by P, that is energy used per unit amount of product, or let us say per kg of product, is all right. So, idea is that these ACC level should be as low as possible. Is it clear? So, one side is all forms of energy that a particular organization uses, and the other side is the product that you form, and see that you have a specific energy consumption data for every such organization. So, here is the idea that we have a baseline ACC. So, here you can see this is our baseline ACC, right, that is what is computed. So, you see that data collection has taken place. So, data was collected from all these suitable industries. So, what is their specific energy consumption levels, that we call them as baseline specific energy, and for 2015 the target is set, right. So, target is given for all such companies, that is your target ACC, and reduction of ACC has to be carried out expressed in percentage, is it all right. So, these are the 3 years, that is your Y1, Y2 and Y3. So, for specific years, that is Y1, Y2 and Y3, for specific years, they will be given some specific targets, and through that specific target they have to achieve the target, the specific energy consumption levels, is it all right. So, that should be our specific reduction. Now, see this is the PAT cycle. So, trading target setting, compliance initiatives, normalization, issuance of energy saving certificates, and then trading, and then cycle goes on, right. Cycle goes on, this has to be done on an year to year basis, right. So, something happens on year 1, something happens on year 2, something happens on year 3 and the process continues, is all right. So, this is the essential process. Then the normalization in the PAT cycle. So, already I told you the normalization is the rationalization of energy and production data of the designated consumer, in short DC, accounting for changes impacting the energy performance, that is called normalization. So, no DC should be under undue advantage or disadvantage for factors beyond its control. In other words, a level playing field should be ensured, that is called normalization, all right. Now, see, here is a diagram which actually shows the comparison between target, compliance, energy saving certificates and penalty. So, look here, the first diagram, that is your baseline, the SECs, right, specific energy consumption. Now, this is the target. So, this is what they were doing, this is where they have to reach. So, this is the gap, this is the gap. Now, look at two scenarios. Here is the company who has achieved the SEC. So, their target was here, they have achieved here. So, they have achieved a little more, all right. So, this is their to their advantage. So, they will be issued energy saving certificates. So, they will be getting those certificates, and this scenario 2, this company, he has achieved, they could not reach the target, they have reached a target which is lower, I mean in a sense higher, in that sense that they wanted to reduce it by this much, but they could reduce only by this much. So, now they have two options, one is they can pay a penalty and they can also buy certificates. So, they can compensate either by paying a penalty or by purchasing certificates or by both. Is it all right? So, you can see the different options for different companies. Now, later on we shall see that even companies can have certain different decision alternatives. What are the decision alternatives? One decision alternatives, particularly for coal sector, is they can use cleaner coal. You see, there are different grades of coal that are available. If you use normal coal or you see kind of coal which is not very clean, obviously your efficiency will be not that much. But if you are on the other hand use cleaner coal, obviously you will be able to achieve better energy performance, but your cost will go up, is it not? So, this is one option. Another option is no, I will not do anything, let us whatever is having, let us go ahead with the existing process, let us pay penalty or let us buy certificates or pay penalty and also buy certificates, all right. So, these are different options that are available before a company, all right. So, this is what is the thing. Now, this is an institutional setup for PAT implementation. We need not understand this, but just for your understanding, lots of activity actually goes on, lots of activity goes on. So, there has to be a PAT administrator and market regulator, is it not? There should be state designated authority, there should be accredited energy auditor, there should be obligated units and designated consumers, there should be adjudicators if there is a difference of opinion, there should be SCRC, another body, there should be central registry, trading exchanges. So, there should be lots of bodies who should coordinate amongst each other, is it all right. So, that because you see simply telling something on paper is one thing, but you have to have a regulatory board to really implement it. Otherwise, then why should the companies listen to you? Unless there are specific directives, unless they have to fulfill certain things, while they are actually operating in a given environment, they will not follow. All right. So, therefore, all of these additional bodies are required who should look into the compliance by the companies, right, which includes the different kinds of authorities, auditors, then trading exchanges and those sort of people. Is all right. So, that is the essential component of this. Now, this diagram shows that the energy saving envisaged under PAT is different for different industries. All right. Specific amongst them is your thermal power and your iron and steel. Right. So, while thermal power you can see is the energy saving target is to the tune of 46% for the thermal power sector, the iron and steel composed of as high as 25%. Is all right. So, you can well imagine the two industries, that is thermal power and your iron and steel together constitutes as high as 71% of the energy saving targets. Is all right. And because of this, specifically the thermal power sector is what has been really taken up for the study that we are talking of. Right. Now, if you specifically look at the thermal power generation and GHG emissions, so here are some data. The first example shows that while the thermal power generation is increasing, see, right from 95, 96 to 2012, 13, if you see the thermal power generation is actually increasing in our country. Thermal power is increasingly going up. The hydroelectricity and the nuclear, if you see, their levels are way below, is it not? So, as our country is growing very rapidly, its GDP is one of the highest in the world, in fact probably the highest in the world most of the time, right. We are the fastest growing GDP in the world, even more better than China most of the time. So, if the country is growing, obviously the electricity requirements is also growing, all right. So, primary sources of electricity are thermal, hydro and nuclear. Obviously, there are others like geothermal and ocean thermal and solar, but their contribution is minuscule even today, right. They are not even become the main sources. So, obviously, it is not very good to use thermal, specifically coal based technology, but then we have no option because we have to fulfill that energy. Nuclear, unfortunately, the contrary to the popular idea, it gives tremendous amount of energy, but it is not the life of the nuclear plants are not very high, right. So, with lot of hard work you can set up a nuclear energy station, but you will not be sustaining it for long, is all right. So, that is the very difficult proposition. It is not very easy to really get lots of power. Probably only France in the world has been able to make considerable inroads through the nuclear power, and it is so much hazardous, for nuclear power. And nowadays, because every place is so populated, the local population is also very much against setting up of a nuclear power generation unit. It's all right. So, there are lots of issues about nuclear, and hydro is again limited to the the rivers and the water flows and things of that sort. So, it is a serious issue. There is nothing to be really feeling good about this curve. Ideally speaking, the use of coal should be minimized. India is again probably one of the largest user of coal, which is not a very good idea, not very good idea. In fact, even this coal based coal extraction is also probably is not very good, right. India has the largest coal reserve in the world, but do you know, if you export coal from Australia or some other country, the price is lower compared to getting it from India. Is that right? So that's what happens. That's what really happens. So India has to ban sometimes to really export of coal, import of coal, right. So importing coal, let us say from Australia, is very much liked by companies, right, because good quality coal is not available everywhere. Only some of the coal companies, they are giving good quality coal, right. Your Nea Valley Lignite Corporation, the lignite is not a very good quality coal, right. The anthracite or bituminous is slightly better, definitely better. Anthracite is the best, but then it is not very easy to get, it is not there in all the coal mines. So, lots of issues about coal and thermal power plant also, the efficiency is very low, right, not even 20%, very low efficiency. So, that means they are highly polluting, is all right. So, when you see that thermal power is going up tremendously, is not a good sign, not a good sign. So, now if you see the your fuel wise average emission factors, you can see that diesel is the highest and coal is next, right. That is one thing. And if you see the carbon emission from thermal power generation, then you can see that coal, just look at what is the share of coal, right. So, if you really look at the carbon footprint is one of the highest with the coal, is all right. And here is the generation capacity as on 31st March 2012, is slightly old data. So, you can see that coal is as high as 81%. So, the indicators are not very good. So, it is very important, and considering that target is the previous slide, that as much as 46% is the energy saving target under thermal power, it is imperative that we focus on the coal sector, right. So, that is the essential idea why the coal sector is specifically chosen. Now, the study objectives of the particular thesis, that is examine the effectiveness of PAT targets in stimulating energy efficiency, is all right. So, how effective are the PAT targets? Because as I told earlier, that if the targets are too easy, then everybody will get certificates, nobody will buy, and if the certificates are too stiff, it will be the other way around, right. Both are not good. And investigate how the PAT scheme influences the compliance choice for improved energy efficiency, because the PAT scheme should be such that people would rather go for energy efficiency than buy certificate or pay penalty, right. Suppose I find that it is good for, I make more profit by paying penalty or by buying certificate, then why should I improve? Suppose improvement requires very high cost, then I would rather say no, let me not improve, let me buy certificates. Obviously, government do not want that. Government wants that you improve. If you do not improve, then you buy certificates or pay penalty, so that next time you increase or you try to improve. That is what is really is the purpose, right. Purpose is not let some people buy certificates, no, that is not the purpose. The scope is that study is carried out in the Indian coal based thermal power, and the study is based on data for the first PAT cycle with 2010 as the base year. So, based on 2010 the data is collected. Now, this is the method that is followed. First part is the data envelopment analysis. and the second part is the decision tree analysis. Is all right. So, what I shall do, since this course is about modeling and analysis, I have 2 more classes left. So, in the second class I will be focusing on the data envelopment part, all right. Say I will not focus on the specific PhD work, because usually PhD work is more intense, right. It will be difficult for you to really understand what is the condition that he has taken, why he has taken. So, I will not bother about that. Same thing about the decision tree analysis also. I will cover those topics independently, all right. So, in the second class I shall cover the data envelopment analysis, and in the third class I shall be covering decision tree analysis from a technical point of view, not from the point of view of this thesis, right. Because in this thesis they have used the student has used advanced level data envelopment analysis, which I am not going to show you, right. I will show you how data envelopment analysis is carried out, so that you get a basic working knowledge of if you want to do decision data envelopment analysis yourself, is all right, and also decision tree analysis. So, those things we shall discuss at that point. But before that, let me understand what exactly is done in the thesis. You see, the coal industries are divided into 3 categories. What are they? Small, medium and large. Small is less than 500 megawatt, medium is between 500 and 1000 megawatt, and large is above 1000 megawatt. So, 71 such coal plant data has been taken up, 18 from small, 25 from medium and 28 from large, with different capacities, is all right. So, in 71 industries, coal industries, this study has been coal plant, this study has been made. Now, these are the essential conditions. Is the unit wise benchmarking consistent with the plant performance? Are the set targets commensurate with their current heat rate, reduction potential? And finally, can improvement in managerial practices bring in substantial energy efficiency improvement, right. A little more detail I will tell. Data envelopment analysis was used as the technique for the analysis, all right. So, these are some of the questions. Unit wise benchmarking. Now, what is benchmarking, right? What is benchmarking? Basically what DEA does, DEA does for every efficiency measure, it focuses or identifies some peer units. Suppose in a particular class there are 20 students, each student they are studying, let us say 2 subjects, physics and mathematics. Now, there are some students who are very good in physics, there may be some other students they are very good in mathematics, right. In fact, there is 1 or 2 students they are the best in physics. It could be 1 student, it could be even 2 students or more. Similarly, there could be other students who are very good in mathematics. So, what we can say that look here, these are the students who are my peer students in physics, these are the students who are my peer students in mathematics. So, for the other students we shall say that look here, for physics he is your target, for mathematics the other student is your target, is it all right. Now, when it comes to DEA, we are talking about efficiencies, not simply performance in physics. Performance in physics per unit resource, is it all right. Now, a company is using number of resources and using getting number of outputs. So, that is what let us see, that is our next slide. So, you see there are some input variables, so and there are some output variables. So, let us say the input variables are non-energy inputs and energy inputs. So, plant capacity, plant load factor and plant availability, 3 inputs are taken from managerial category and 2 inputs are taken from energy side, primary energy consumption, that is coal, and secondary energy consumption, that is secondary fuel, because even in coal plant, apart from coal you also require fuels in the form of maybe diesel, is all right. Then output variable is the desired output, the generation of power, how much power is generated, all right, and undesirable output, CO2 emission. So, can you tell us how many efficiencies are we having here? Efficiency is output by input. So, with 5 inputs and 2 outputs, how many efficiencies are you going to have? As many as 10. Can you see there are 10 possible productivity measures? See, one is that generation of power per unit plant capacity, generation of power per unit plant load factor, generation of power per unit plant availability, right, and like that, CO2 generation per unit plant capacity, CO2 emission per unit primary energy consumption. These are efficiency measure. The other measure is ESC measures, which are the reverse of it. That means, efficiency should be maximum and the reverse should be minimum. That means, primary energy consumption per unit CO2 emission, because the ministry targets are all in your other way round, all right. So, you can see that as many as 10 different efficiency measures you can think of. So, you can have peer unit for each of the 10, all right. What DEA does, DEA also calculates a relative efficiency, which is basically giving weight to the outputs as well as the inputs. So, it is like W1 into Y1 plus W2 into Y2 divided by, right, U1 into X1 plus U2 into X2, U3 into X3, U4 into X4 and U5 into X5. So, that is an output by input. Now, what are these U's and W's? They are the weights given to the specific inputs and outputs. But what should be the values of U's and W's? What DEA does, DEA maximizes the efficiency, right, in such a manner and find the values of these weights, so that your efficiency becomes maximum subject to that efficiency of no other unit crosses a threshold value, say 1. So, you maximize your efficiency, that is fine, but it should not be done in a manner so that somebody else becomes more than 1, all right, if the same weights are used. So, a linear programming problem is formed and that linear programming problem is solved to find the weights, and when you find the weights, that should be the relative efficiency of a given unit, right. That is the broad procedure of DEA. I am not going into details now, these I will discuss maybe in my next class, where I specifically talk about DEA. Is it all right? Right. So, these are the inputs and outputs. Now, 3 DEA models are constructed. What are they? Determine the plant efficiencies that maximize power generation while minimizing emissions. Determine energy saving potential of plants at optimal energy use, and determine the energy saving potential at optimal condition of non-energy inputs, right. So, different 3 types of DEA models are used, and all these DEA models have given quite a bit of data, right. So, what is this data really found? So, these are the results that have been found. So, you can see that in the small power plants, you can see the first graph, second graph and the third graph. So, you can see this, that these are the different units. So, there are 18 units in small, 25 in medium and 28 units in the large. Let us say what is true for the fourth unit. Look here, the fourth unit, then the HR reduction potential, that is heat rate reduction potential, is from the the managerial thing is quite high, right, whereas for the your energy use point somewhat okay. But what about unit 3? Can you see this? This unit 3 is using the energy as well as the managerial potential in the best possible manner. Can you see that? So, they do not have any reduction potential. That means, they are already using in the best possible way. Do you understand? So, in that sense, you may even say that unit 3 is a kind of a peer unit, right. So, you can also see a unit 3 is a peer unit here also, whereas this is the number unit 4 is the peer unit. But compare this, let us say unit 9. Unit 9 has got tremendous energy use reduction potential, right, heat rate reduction potential with regard to energy use. That means, it is using energy very inefficiently. Is it all right? So, what see basically that is what DEA does. DEA really identifies all the different units, their relative position, and individual units can be given targets, right. It will be like the logic goes like this: if 3 can do it, why can't you do it, right? Why not take example from 3 and use your energy and your managerial inputs like unit 3, right. If you cannot do straight away, then do it gradually. So, you can then do a target setting for 9, right. Is it clear or not clear? Look at the middle portion, look at the unit 14. See, unit 14 is not using the heat reduction potential with regard to energy use. Can you see that unit 14 of the medium large power plants? You can see that for the large power plants, things are very different for 14, whereas unit 21 is doing it so beautifully. So, for 14, who are the targets? Targets are number 8, number 3, number 21 or even number 25. They are the targets, because they are using the energy in the best possible way, right. So, like this, such analysis is carried out, and here is some interesting results, that demand supply scenario under PAT scheme. So, you can see that more number of units, for when it comes to large, medium and small, the number of units who are who are achieving target is more, rather than number of units who are not achieving target is less. So, you see who will buy? The who are not doing well, and who will sell? The who are doing well. So, if the total volume is large, the total amount is large for the is the units for all compared to the units that are buying, that means they are relatively doing better performance. Is it all right? Another study was made that if the EE potential realized is less by 20%, 40% and 100%, how they are being achieved. Anyhow, let us not get details into that. Let us come to the findings. The findings are targets for the less efficient plants are much less than their actual potentials, right. Targets for more efficient plants are relatively more stringent, all right. If the sector realizes its full potential, then the ESC market would witness a surplus of 4.7 million certificates. Managerial inefficiency accounts for 4% of the system inefficiency. So, basically what it essentially says, the DEA analysis, what has been found, that the less efficient plants, all right, the targets are much less. That means they could have been set stiffer targets, all right. That is why there is an excess of certificates in the market rather than the people buying certificates. So, in a sense you can say, because it is the first time implementation of the PAT scheme, the government of India was not very stringent, right. They have set relatively easier target for the companies. That is one of the finding. The second finding is target for more efficient plants are relatively more stringent. So, that means if you are already doing well, then targets for you are stiffer, but it is in fact that is what he found, because as I told right in the beginning, Dr. Sahu, he is in actual environment board of Odisha and in a senior position. So, he found that companies particularly who are doing well, they find it very difficult to improve it further. In fact, many times he told me that their performance has actually gone down. That means they are already doing well earlier, after implementation they are even worse, all right. So, this is one of the things that has happened, is all right. So, these are the issues, and the managerial reasons could be as much as 24%. That means, even if they take care of the managerial thing and not really go for technical implementation, 24% can be taken care of. So much advantage is practically possible, all right. So, that is what is one set of finding. A second question, although I do not know how much time is available, but quickly at least I will just tell you the facts and then we can see it later. So, influence of the PAT scheme on investment choice for long term realization of improved energy efficiency. So, how do the uncertain ESC price and coal price premium influence the viability of plant specific investment of energy efficiency, and how do the potential heat rate reduction and set target influence the compliance choice of the power plants? So, this has been done from a decision analysis study, right. So, I will show some glimpses. So, forget about the steps and all. So, this also let me skip. So, these are the three choices in front of the companies. One is investment on energy efficiency, switching to clean coal, and compliance through purchase of energy saving certificates. So, EE actually invest on energy efficiency, bring technological change in the company, or switching to clean coal, which is an easier way, which I was just telling, or buy certificates, right, do not do much. So, these are the three choices. So, you see, if you are already gone for EE, then you have CC and ESC choice. If you have gone for CC, then you can do this. So, these are the different choices before the people, all right. So, based on that and based on the different plant data that has been obtained, all right. So, you see these are the various decision trees that are actually possible for companies. Let us say a particular plant B. So, supposing the plant B first goes for EE, that is investment in energy efficiency, or it can go for CC, switching to clean coal, or it can go for ESC, the compliance through purchase through energy certificates. All right. Then you can see, depending on the high, medium or low market situations, what are their different gains. You can see under all situations they are in the negative, but the lowest values are actually obtained here, just see minus 18, whereas this value is as high as minus 77. So, that means it is better for this company to go for ESC and really go for, because they do not know whether it will be medium or low. So, that is what is they should not really invest in energy efficiency certificates or switching to clean coal. They should do well to go for ESC. Is all right. Now, further will be difficult for you to understand without really understanding how the decision tree analysis is done, right. So, similar such decision tree analysis are carried out, which are shown in the rest of the slides. So, I am not going through them, I will show you again in the last class, right. The key findings let me discuss. The investment for energy efficiency is more likely to take place in inefficient plants, right. Efficient plants would rely upon certificates for PAT compliance irrespective of ESC price, right. Fuel switching option for PAT compliance is not expected to be acceptable in the present context. So, the decision analysis showed very interesting results, that only the inefficient plants will go for investments and the efficient plants they would buy certificates. That is the decision situation today, all right. And going for clean coal option is not very viable in the present context. So, this is the reality and that is what is happening. The PAT scheme can be an effective policy for efficiency improvement. The target set by PAT scheme for the thermal power sector is significantly less than the potential. The targets for more efficient plants are substantially more than their potentials, right. The optimal investment choice relies on baseline efficiency of the individual plants and the ESC price. Early investment in energy efficiency is likely to be witnessed in inefficient plants, and purchasing ESCs would remain optimal compliance choice for efficient plants. So, these are the broad findings, and these are the papers that have been published. So, one in Energy Policy Journal, another in Energy Economics Journal, another is Renewable and Sustainable Energy Reviews Journal. So, three very good publications have been obtained from this particular work, all right. So, these are the things, and thank you very much, right. So, I think I can take questions from you, and after we discuss about the techniques, is all right. So, what I do in my second class, I will go for the data envelopment analysis discussions, and in the third consecutive class we talk about the decision tree analysis and revisit these figures once again, right. Okay, then thank you very much.
So, very good afternoon to all of you. I hope the past 3 sessions have helped you in understanding certain the basic issues related to environmental management. As we have been pointing out repeatedly, that environmental management is a very complex issue, and there are many aspects to be learned. and to be implemented. Now, majority of the organizations throughout the world, particularly the business organizations, manufacturing organizations, they have many kinds of limitations, and majority of these organizations, for obvious reasons, they have the limited knowledge in environmental management. Okay. 100 years back, the knowledge had been almost zero. Today, even if you take a survey, like if you meet any managing director of any company, okay, good, bad or ugly, definitely you ask him to talk about environmental management. I am sure there could be some exceptions, but the exception cannot be the rule. You will find majority of these managing directors, executive directors, as such they cannot explain in specific terms what is to be done in environmental management. Forget about the managing directors, executive directors of the company. Many researchers, many the university experts in the field of environmental management, right? You just interact with them, you will always hear one particular assessment that they don't know anything about environmental management. Getting my point? So slowly it is building up, and as this is the limitation, in fact, and these limitations, you will find in almost all types of organizations. Just you think of the SMEs. Getting my point? SMEs, most majority of the SMEs, yes. It's okay?
Mobile, you keep the mobile.
Acha. Okay. Just 1 minute. It's okay, na? Okay. Shall I start once again? No, it's okay. It's আমাকে আবার স্টার্ট করব? হ্যালো, continue. Okay, fine. So what we are emphasizing, that is it's a complex issue, and any organizations, even I was referring to SMEs throughout the world, you will find it has its own limitation, in the sense that its knowledge base exists in one or two products. Getting my point? And maybe that particular SME is producing a unique product. Okay, the design is known, many perspectives are known, but if you ask them to link their performance with the environmental performance, they will fall flat, I am telling you. It's not possible, right? So whenever someone talks about environmental management issues, it's a complex issues, so a teamwork is a must. Okay, whoever you may be, your knowledge is limited. Is it okay? So you will come to know that why this knowledge in environmental management issues has been very, very limited. Okay, and how to overcome this problem. So first thing is that you must believe in the team approach. A team is to be formed, and a multidisciplinary team, not from the same discipline. Getting my point? And you must believe in interdisciplinary approach. Getting my point? This point we have been emphasizing in all. So and an integrated approach, a comprehensive approach is required. It's not that just one aspect you will focusing on, other aspects you may not bother. Is it okay? Because there are many unknowns, and as you may be knowing that the problems can be of three types: problem under certainty, problems under risk, and problems under uncertainty. So, this whenever someone talks about environmental issues, the problems he or she will be dealing with is problems under uncertainty. I presume that you know what is the difference between the problem under risk and problem under uncertainty. You are aware of means the Carl Pearson systems of equations. How many of you are aware of? So you need to refer to several tools and techniques already developed for maybe 5 centuries ago. You have to refer to that. Getting my point. So, and another problem you might be facing, that is the data collection. The third important problem is that impact analysis, environmental impact is a very important analysis in fact. To some extent short term impact based on certain experimentation, you will have some idea, but what about the long term impact? Are you getting my point? That means whenever we talk about the life cycle costing, so the long term impact you must include. Is it okay? And here the problem lies. Is it okay? So today during these lecture sessions, I will just highlight the important points, the procedure you employ to develop, or first you design a comprehensive EPME framework. And once this framework is known, then this framework is to be implemented at a particular location for a particular system. Is it okay? So, this I am calling it a comprehensive EPME framework. There are many issues involved, many factors you need to consider, many sorts of constraints, many sorts of tools and techniques. Getting my point? So, all these details, so let us have some idea, right? It is the first introduction session, first day, and what is expected towards the end, you will get an idea that what is to be done, what is that framework. Now, so you must be aware of certain critical points. A comprehensive framework is essential. Many, say the people you come across, right, who are biased to a particular discipline, they may not accept this comprehensive framework. Getting my point? So, the first thing is essential for any organization, for any systems, large or small, a comprehensive framework is essential. Is it okay? I am not saying necessary, I am saying essential. Is it okay? Without this comprehensive framework, you may not get any results out of it. There are many such cases also. What are the main problems? Just you write down. Understanding short term and long term impacts. Even with the short term, the data which you get, the result you get, the information you get in the research paper based on certain experiments, certain the studies. So there are a lot of assumptions. Getting my point? And within a particular framework assumptions, those results may be valid. Is it okay? So the validation is very, very important in fact. This is the short term one. What about the long term one? Now to study the long term impact, the theories must be known very clearly. Getting my point? So that it is basically referred to as exploratory research. Getting my point? Means at the research level, but at the implementation level, it comes first at the research level, and then the implementation level may come much later. Getting my point? So never you be in a hurry. Getting my point? You follow the steadily, but you move slow. You must not be in a hurry. Getting my point? Then reliable estimates. It's clear. Like I'll tell you that any estimate you get or any result you get under some assumptions, right? If someone says that this amount of carbon dioxide is emitted, so immediately you ask him this question that, sir, what is that process? And what is that chemical formula? Can you please sir write down? My point. Always, I have come across a scenario, that's why I am telling you. Is it okay? So immediately you will come to know to what extent he is sound, okay, his adequate knowledge in explaining this. Unfortunately, in many cases you will find that someone, suppose you hire someone and he tells you certain data, okay, with some the mindset, and never this question is asked. Getting my point. You change the process, your carbon dioxide, the amount will be different. And for the same product, there could be 100 processes. Getting my point. So it should be, or whenever you talk about these reliable estimates, this is the core. Is it okay? You must not forget this one, right? Then the impact of technology. How do you define technology? Do you have any definition with you? What is the definition of technology? Have you ever, read its meaning as given in Webster Dictionary? How many of you have read, okay, its meaning in Webster Dictionary? Okay, so whenever you search for such definitions, so you get to the root of the problem in many a time. Getting my point? That means sometimes the context must be known, right? Getting the definition, and your concept will be made very, very clear. That's the source. These are all generic terms. How do you say there is a generic term? Then the impact of technology. It itself is a great subject. Is it okay? 100 ways it can be interpreted, and like you have, say, technology forecasting. Is it okay? Similarly, there are many sorts of tools, techniques, approaches you have to employ for measuring the impact of technology. Right? Impact of technology. Perception of stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders? Like in a typical company, can you name who are the stakeholders? Who are the stakeholders? A company is created. Is it okay? Following the rules and regulations as stipulated by the state. You got the license. Is it okay? Now, who are your principal stakeholders? Like, the Deming. You have heard his name, Deming? Okay, the Deming has mentioned about the extended process. Okay, if you think only about the employees, that's not the extended process. So, who are the stakeholders? Stakeholders are definitely investor in a capitalistic systems of production. Investors in the capitalistic system of production. Investors are the shareholders. Okay, so their interest is to be protected. The second one is the employees of all categories. Okay, all categories. The third one is your customers, and the fourth one is the suppliers. So within this environment domain, there is a boundary line. Is it okay? So whenever you talk about the environmental issues related to the employees, so what are those issues? You must know. Plus, what is important is you have your entity, fine, but it's a part of the social system. Is it okay? There are 100 such cases, in fact, like say that is how the the factory is getting built. What is the problem you face? As I have been telling you, essentially the factory system is artificial system, essentially, and you have to how can you keep yourself totally isolated from the social system? The kinds of the activities you do, is it okay for producing the product or creating the services? So it has it is directly or indirectly affecting the environment surrounding you, and there are population in that particular surrounding, so they are affected. Is it okay? So so this perception of stakeholder is very, very important. In many cases you will find many organizations these days, it's a worldwide problem. Okay, you focus on a particular group and you do not bother about the others. Is it okay? Corporate social responsibility. This is one aspect is this particular term has become very, very popular, right? As if you have to declare yourself formally that you are a part of the social system. Yes, are getting my point? Availability of measurement systems. So, measurement sometimes in certain context becomes a very controversial issue, very, very controversial issues. There are many subjective factors, there are many objective factors. Okay. For the objective factors, there is a measurement scales and all those. You know what is a ratio scale, ordinal scale, cardinal scales. There are 4 types of measures you have. Okay. So, which one falls? And in a particular measurement scale, what is the limitation? Getting my point. So, many a time you need to what you have to do, that means more important in many cases like subjective judgment supported with the objective analysis. Getting my point. So, objective analysis, you stop only at the objective analysis, call it measurement system, but you don't bother about the subjective judgment, then you may be wrong, particularly in those aspects. Okay. Linking environmental performance with business performance. How do you link it? What is that model? Will you disclose it? Getting my point. What are the organizations? Can you make a survey that they regularly, they regularly disclose this data? Getting my point. In the AGM, annual general meeting, they disclose their financial performance. How many organizations you come across where they own responsibility for some kind of, say the environmental management systems, okay, responsibility for, creating an acceptable environmental management systems. Have you come across any organization? Just find out which organization talks about this. This is a very critical issue, in fact. Whether it is to be permitted in a business activity or not, that is to be checked, in fact. Getting my point. Just make a survey that how many companies they disclose this data, whatever maybe their measurement system. Getting my point. So, this is very important, in fact, linking environmental performance with business performance. We have come across certain measurement techniques, in fact, where you are performing very well, but to what extent your performance or your organizational system affecting the health of the employees. This has become a very, very critical issue, and this is referred to as the occupational health. It's clear, occupational health. When I join a company, I join the company as a healthy person. When I am leaving the organization, maybe after 10 years, maybe after 5 years, maybe after 30 years, am I leaving the organization in a healthy, say the status or not? And if I am not healthy, to what extent the organization is responsible? This is just one dimension of this environmental performance. Getting my point? I may be responsible, my lifestyle, there are many other factors, but organization is also responsible, the kind of work environment it has created. Are you getting my point? So, how do you assess this one, right? Like many years back, I was observing the health status of underground miners. Is it okay? And there is a permanent deformation. Okay. He or she becomes totally unhealthy. We are taking anthropometric measurements. Okay. He was never born with those the dimensions and all, right? So, obviously, if you just visit any underground mine, the extreme working conditions, and then you will realize that to what extent the environment plays a role. Getting my point? The environmental condition. So, always I say that you must be aware of the extreme conditions. You must know. Like say how the jute mill workers they are working, in which kind of environment. Getting my point? So, this is one. Collecting and collating experts' opinion. Getting my point? How many of you are aware of, say, the Delphi study? Delphi study. Delphi is a place in ancient Greece where oracles used to be cited for make predictions about the future. Delphi study. So there is a long history of Delphi study. O. Helmer and others, they first introduced the concept in mid 50s. Okay, mid 50s. So you go through, there are references in fact. Whenever you deal with such complex issues, is it okay? Get the experts' opinions. And these expert opinions are to be studied in a very systematic manner. Getting my point? There are many such cases in fact, and this is referred to as the Delphi study. So it's a fit case. Whenever you carry out, it's a research area obviously, the environmental case, for any industry you talk about. Can you name any industry which doesn't have environmental management problem? Can you can you cite one example of a manufacturing process where there is no waste? No, right? So the problem remains. Now previously we are allowed to ignore this problem. Today you will not be allowed to ignore this problem. Getting my point? So that is a tremendous pressure on the management in fact. Okay. So experts' opinion, many a time what happens that any organization, it has its own the limited knowledge. It doesn't know. If you make a study, okay, or say make a opinion survey that whatever their ideas about the environmental management, we have carried out a study, and what we have found, they hardly know anything, and that is expected. So you have no other alternatives to bring in the experts' opinions and otherwise. Okay, even the scientists also, scientists, experts, other researchers of eminence, they should join in this exercise. And particularly you will find how many organizations are equipped with R&D, research and development. How many R&D organizations in India? Okay, primarily we are concerned about India, isn't it? That's our motherland. And primarily how many R&D organizations you have? They have been constantly working on these areas. You should be aware of. Getting my point? So the experts' views, very important. And implementation is a long-term process. As I have been telling you, that you must not be in a hurry. Getting my point? So that sort of support and backing you must have from your top management. That means suppose I am an expert, but I am the junior executive. Okay, I need the support from my top management. Even if may not be knowing all these details, but he knows that why these environmental management issues are to be considered, and if they are not considered, what is the risk involved? If he is aware of this one, fine. So you get long-term support, and immediately, when you interact as a junior executive to the managing director, you must have the ability to make him understand, okay, that why it is a slow process and what sort of advantages you will have, because at each step there will be unknowns. Getting my point? Each step you start modeling it. Okay, you think that for 7 days with your group this is right one. Now after 7 days the fourth person may come, or seventh person, he may highlight some other points. Are you getting my point? So it has to be a very slow one. There is no other alternatives because of your lack of knowledge. It's clear, and it is to be tested, it is to be verified by other experts. Now any framework that is environmental performance, measurement and evaluation framework. Okay, measurement and evaluation framework. In the introductory lecture, in the inaugural session, I have mentioned, if you remember, if you recollect, that there are 6 steps involved in closed loop. Okay, in any management control exercises. First one is the awareness. What is your level of awareness? What do you mean by awareness? What are the dimensions you will ask for? And if you find that these dimensions are looked into, then you say that yes, the top management is really aware. It's not just making a statement. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are aware of the importance of environmental issues. Is it okay? So the first thing is awareness. If the awareness is not there, there's no point in talking about the EPM framework. That is the necessary condition. Okay. And if you cannot cross this hurdle, suppose it's a hurdle, and you cannot cross it, obviously you can't expect that the company or that person will be interested in the framework. Is it okay? Now, once he or she is aware of, is the individual preference after all. You're getting my point. Then you have to follow a step-by-step approach in the closed loop. Always, you know the difference between open loop and closed loop. A closed system and open system. So it has to be a closed loop. Is it okay? That means there must be trial and error. You never know. You start with an approximate model, and ultimately, with lot of trial and errors, you come out with a comprehensive implementable model. While you implement, just to make a note, sometimes what we have found that you make a compromise on that. Is it okay? Or simplistic assumption. Now this might create a problem later on. Particularly, the environmental exercises, if you make a simplistic assumption, later on you may get a misleading conclusion. Remember one thing, okay? So first, the selection of the study area. Suppose you have 10 departments, 10 working areas, like the machine shop, like the fabrication shop, like the foundry, like the assembly, okay, right. So the area wise, plus or this is one. The second one, which area you will choose, which department you will choose, on what basis, right. You have to have a priority, right. And normally what happens, suppose the first time you try to implement a framework, it is naturally expected that the first exercise which you do, right, it's like a pilot project. Getting my point? That means this is a pilot project, everybody is watching you, and later on when it is established, right, other will learn, other departments will learn. So you must select a particular area where the scope of improvement is enormous. This is one. The second one is where all the elements of the framework, almost all it cannot be all, almost all the elements of the framework you can implement. Are you getting my point? Otherwise, suppose you take a simple one machine and you develop a model, right? But when you say the traditional say the machining you are bothering about, just one operations like say the grinding or say the turning, there is a one machine. But when you try to implement that model, okay, for a CNC machine in the DNC framework, so you will be at a loss. So a just particular project cannot be treated as a pilot project. So initially you start with a pilot project, the selection of the study area, then you have to collect data. Is it okay? This is a rigorous exercise. That means if your knowledge base is perfect, right, you will be collecting a certain set of data. If suppose you are absolutely a beginner, okay, and you will create certain documents for data collection. If you are an experienced person, right, so obviously the number of the different types of documents you will be able to recommend. Getting my point for data collection. So the data collection is a very important activity, and then data analysis, tools and techniques, right, is a normal, in fact, for any kind of say the design exercise also we do. Development of a comprehensive environmental performance measurement and evaluation system. Okay. And as you may be knowing that when you try to develop this model, there are two types of models. One is definitely the conceptual model, you are all aware of, the conceptual model, and the second one is the database model. Now, whether you will opt for database model or say conceptual model, it has to be a conceptual model. Getting my point? Let us see first, right? And later on, when you establish it, okay, and then you can say, yes, I analyze the data like this. This is the systems I have created. Why don't you, use that one? Something has to be there. Is it okay? So normally what happens is, as a beginner, you have to start from the scratch. Mind it. This is another problem. Suppose you are given as an exercise on quality. In all likelihood, is it okay? You may not have to start from the scratch. Getting my point? Or say some production control problem. But in majority of the cases, whenever you say it's an environmental management problems, majority of the cases you have to start from the scratch. Is it okay? So, the top management support is a must, and experts' opinion is a must. Validation of the measurement and evaluation system and implementation of the framework. So, these are the steps. Do you have any queries? You can ask any queries related to this. Anyway, so later on we can address all your queries. This is quite natural that you may have many queries and all. And so let us talk about the first step, that is selection of the study area. Out of many manufacturing processes, production lines, which one requires environmental performance assessment on a priority? This is the point I have already highlighted. So this is a question. Can you write down each one of you, whatever comes to your mind, 5 factors for selection of the study area? Just you spend 2 to 3 minutes of time. I need to select. So what are the factors you need to consider? You are getting my point? Right. So each one of you, okay, can you write down that the 5 factors I need to consider? Just keep it with you. Okay, just you write down. Out of many manufacturing processes or production lines, you know what is a production line? Which one requires environmental performance assessment on a priority? This is the question. In your mind, there could be any production system of any type. Okay. There are some general factors. There could be some special factors, always. So let us write down the general factors, in fact, applicable to any. Okay. So selection, study areas. You have written what are the factors? Essentially, you have to address the problem, environmental problem. How many types of environmental problems you write down? Just a note of interrogation. How many environment related problems in specific terms you come across? Just you write down. How many? This is a question raising. So without interrogation, note of interrogation, you write down. How many environment related, okay, factors you need to consider? What are those issues? What actually going to measure in totality? Suppose this is an environment, right? Okay, how do you assess its performance? What are the factors? See, there are you're spending, the resources, all right. So how do you assess? Like suppose I am using AC over here. I do not. There's two conditions, right? Here's an artificial environment, right? Whether come over here in the morning or the evening, is same. You can't say actually that whether it is in morning time or the evening time or say the noon. Is it okay? Even you don't know whether it's the daytime or the night time. This is one scenario. What is its cost? There are another varieties. Like say, many parts. You will find that I will have a classroom as early morning. Okay, I can see the sunlight outside. I feel it is early morning. Okay, and then in the afternoon, late afternoon, the sun is setting. Okay, I get a feeling. Is it okay? It's a learning environment. Getting my point? So which one you will prefer? Which one is more expensive? You tell me. This is the system. You just keep in mind that this is a system. Basically, this system is unavoidable in North European countries. It is essentially very cold. There is no sunlight at all. So they have designed this system. Is it suitable for our system? You feel comfortable. But at what cost? Getting my point? Yes, wherever it is essential, like in the operation theatre, okay, you need to control the temperature. But during springtime, during the winter, we have been using AC, but we are not seeing the sunlight. Getting my point? So if you open environment you create, there are many such universities creating. Is it okay? Definitely in the hot summer, in the month of May, I will have those arrangements. But why in other months? So you have to be very, very selective. Okay. So this is just one important issue related to environment. At what cost? Is it okay? So as I have been pointing out, what you can say, the rampant overconsumption of energy. Is it okay? What is his long-term impact? Is it sustainable? Anyway, so this way you have to proceed. Right? Okay. So you have written all these factors. Anyway, keep it with you. Later on we will come back. Now, selection is based on one or more of the following factors. I am trying to, classify them. Getting my point? You can highlight several factors, but are you in a position to classify those factors? Classification. Getting my point? Reference to past data. You have the secondary sources of data. Is it okay? Reference to past data. Someone has carried out a study and he is bringing out with this data, right? So let us I accept his views and let us note down. Is it okay? Later on you question, but not now. Getting my point? Complaints. What sort of complaints you get? That means you should be aware of, right? And the complaints from on different aspects. Getting my point? Performance deterioration. It has been found that in an artificial environment, is it okay? Suppose day in, day out, you start learning in the same environment. It has been conclusively proved that your performance will be affected. Because after all, you are a natural human being. Getting my point? Your health may deteriorate also. And if your health deteriorates, obviously your learning ability will be affected. That is the necessary condition. Is it okay? There are some, the many, the instances we have. Okay. These are also in extreme situations. Extreme situation is the poverty, right? You don't have anything to eat. is struggling for your existence, for maintaining your existence. So the other extremes is it okay? It is like obesity, okay, overfeeding at which cost? Getting my point? So these are the issues. In fact, the company you will find, you start visiting, okay, you take stock of the situation, you will find in the certain places huge amount of materials. Is it okay? The capital locked up, tied up, inventory, okay, there is hardly any flow. Is it okay? Now what is his impact long term? Is it okay? So the complaints can be of different types, and the complaints can be classified also. Getting my point? It has to be, right? Otherwise, no, you get lost sometimes. So in which category? So as a researcher, as a decision maker, you get the data. But unclassified data means essentially it's a garbage. So when you're able to classify them, you build up certain knowledge, we always say. So as a researcher, you must have the ability to classify. Performance deterioration, incidents, accidents. Okay. How many such accidents are happening? Is it okay? And including like say occupational hazards. Is it okay? Can you name any operation, any activity at the shop floor which is not a hazard? Which is not a hazard? Cannot. Is it okay? You cannot name. Is it okay? So occupational hazards, government regulations. Suddenly you become aware that ISO 14001, you know ISO 14001 is to be implemented, and this way the data are to be recorded, and there it is to be declared that what are the dangerous operations. Is it okay? You have to declare. So government regulations, there are in the standards is also responsible. And environmental audit is a part of the standards and all. Sometimes what happens, you know, as you have to carry out environmental audit, you are implementing. If there is no environmental audit, you say yes, it's not useful at all. In many cases, you will find you ask them, sir, are you implementing environmental, the control measures, environmental management? How do you implement? No, sir, we have been following the standards. Getting my point? That means, is the standard implementation, is it a first choice or the last resort? Getting my point? No, standards are basically the guidelines. Okay, it's not that all the standards are implemented. It's not a gospel truth. Are getting my point? You just get an idea, but you have to build it from your system, because your system is unique. Are getting my point? Each company you visit, each workplace you visit, there is some uniqueness, and because of this uniqueness, there will be environmental pollution. There could be, absolutely, environment friendliness. Are getting my point? So, and what is your critical mass? Have you heard this term, critical mass? That means, like say, suppose you are giving employment to say 1,000 persons. Okay, you are the leader. How many of them, is it 5 or 1 or 50 of them have knowledge in environmental management issues? So ultimately you have to create, and this is referred to as the critical mass. How many times you will be bringing in, say, the expertise from other resources? Getting my point? Like KPMG and all other organizations. Is it okay? How many times? And how do you say that, so if you get those expert advice, you will be solving their problem? Getting my point? So first you have to stand on your own. You have to, that is another pressure environment. Point. Otherwise what will happen? The person concerned you hire as a consultant, his opinion is different. Is it okay? He cannot be your man or your person, and he has suggested some solutions. unless of course he is well known throughout the world. Okay. So ultimately, even if you get all these expertise, ultimately you have to create your own framework. That's why I've given this name, that's EPME framework, that you have to create. You get the opinions of others. So environmental audit. Next comes the data collection. Where does the study area stand vis-a-vis environmental performance norms standards? Have you understood? What does it mean? Where does the study area stand vis-a-vis environmental performance norms standards? Is it okay? That means you know that these are the factors. Like say suppose in a particular area you find that there is unavoidable air pollution. Unavoidable. Okay. Now it is observed. Clearly everybody knows. There are many such smokes, fumes, dusts. Okay. Visit. Now immediately you feel, what is, can there be a measurement system? It has to be measured. Getting my point? Or say suppose you find, the water is getting contaminated. The recycling is there, but there is no foolproof technology, right? So automatically by observing this, because everybody knows what is a good condition, what is a bad condition, everybody knows. So accordingly, you say yes. So the air pollution level, I need to have data on air pollution level. Is it okay? So this is so that means you must be very, very sensitive. If you are a totally, you say, everyone is accepted, what is this? You have to accept. My grandfather used to accept these conditions. Okay. Why not you? Getting my point? Or you say the past was very good. Don't be, biased with this. We have a tendency. We always say past is gold. No, it never had been, in fact. So you have to be very, very objective, right? You say that this is the real problem and with the justification. So what are the data collection instruments? Have you heard this term, data collection instruments? Is it okay? And the advantage is these days, for many years in fact, 20-25 years, that you have a computer based system. That means the data can be collected, data can be stored, data can be modified, can be edited, okay, can be changed over the time periods, as well as the data can be retrieved. Getting my point? So when we started our career in 80s, there is no advantage in fact. Suppose I want to create a system, so it is absolutely manual. Getting my point? And always when you start with this exercise, is it okay? It is an approximate model, always. So let it be there. Okay, you can create your own system. Okay, right now you maybe there is no positive response from the others. So you say, yes, I have studied. I have, I am studying these systems. I am working over here. I have these ideas. So given a chance, I will interact with the concerned person. Is it okay? Maybe at this point in time I am not getting any support, but let it be. I just make this model on my computer. Is an advantage. Are you getting my point? So information system support you will get is all sorts of support. So existing measurement system, you can just develop it. What is the existing measurement systems? Questionnaire based survey, the experts and affected stakeholders. I have already defined who are the stakeholders. The process details. Okay, this knowledge is a must. In many cases we will find if you hire the experts from the others, they don't have the time, they don't have the intent, they don't have the knowledge. Is it okay? To tell you about the details. But if you get the involvement of your own persons, okay, so they will tell you. We used to have such experiences when we used to work on the shop floor. Even you get, the support from the workers. They know ins and outs. There are many such workers. So respect them, get the details of the processes. Many a time you will find, for obvious reasons, someone may be occupying a high post, but with respect to this particular process, he lacks knowledge. Getting my point? So in that case, obviously the persons who are working, okay, they must be respected. Getting my point? It's not that it's my cup of tea. That sort of attitude may not bring results, because these workers, mostly the workers, is it okay? They are emotionally attached to their job, and they are hard hit with the environment. So why not you approach them, and in a practical case, when you collect data, so they will come forward and they will give you all sorts of data. Getting my point? So the process details must be known, it cannot be avoided. Reference to past data on air pollution, that is number one. Second one is water contamination. How do you measure water contamination? Can there be any, say, the plant where there is no water contamination? It's clear. Land degradation is a serious issue, like in the open cast mines, many others. Land degradation is a highly researched area, land degradation, right? You find certain problems with respect to land degradation, you thoroughly, make a literature review. I am sure almost 99% of the cases you get the solution, because mankind has been facing this problem for a long time, and there are great minds, minds, they have worked on this one. Getting my point? So you have to get all this data. Land degradation, negative effect on flora and fauna. What is flora and fauna? What is flora and fauna? Plant and animal. Is it okay? So the effect on the plant, effect on the animal. There are many such cases in the case studies. So as you can understand that how complicated the problem is. Getting my point? You cannot avoid this. You say no. This effect flora and fauna is not. If you can claim, you have to prove it. That your processes, right, that you have been running for the last 25 years, can you declare? You say that my hypothesis is that there is hardly any impact on the flora and fauna. Can you declare it? No. Getting my point? And the types of technologies used. Technology impact. Impact related data, short term and long term. Knowledge about the best practices. Okay, how many of you have heard the term called benchmarking? There are two types of benchmarking: product benchmarking, process benchmarking. So here in this case, you have to be bothering about the process benchmarking. And what you will find, that always the process benchmarking is a very complex exercise. It's not that easy. Is it okay? You have to have an in-depth understanding of the processes being used by other companies. How to do that? That question you ask. Is it okay? You just refer to that. Suppose I asked you to get me the details of the processes being used by company. You are representing company X. Your competitor is company Y. Is it okay? In the same product range. Now I ask you to get the details of the processes that particular your competitor company Y been using. So how do you get this data? Is it okay? There are many approaches, right? So you just think about it. How many? Knowledge about the benchmark systems, if any. It's clear. Normally what you say, that if you are a manager in true sense, you must have three qualities. What is the first quality? It's given in the management textbooks throughout the world. The textbook is being read. There are three qualities of a manager. The first one is the job which he has been carrying out. He must have the technical skills. Suppose under him there is a shop, and there are say 100 such machineries, it is expected that he must know the operations as well as the maintenance details of all these machines. This is a necessary condition, no way out. Otherwise, you cannot command respect. This is called technical skills. It's clear. So, if you have this skill, you will be commanding respect and there will be no problem in implementation. Is it okay? Many a time you will find that a manager is facing lot of implementation problems. Primarily, this is the reason. Okay. In many cases, the workers, they do not have any respect for these managers. So, this is the first one. What is the second one? Second one is called communication skill. Now, the communication skill doesn't mean that I recite some some poems and all and beautiful words I use. That's not called communication skill. Communication skill means, suppose a person, he is standing, he says, sir, my I don't know why my machine is down, with respect to the job only, right? It has been misinterpreted. So now you must have the ability in his language that what has happened. That is called communication skill. It's not that you take a lecture, like I am giving a lecture and you say it's a communication skill. So in a managerial context, this sort of lecture doesn't have any meaning. Maybe that is a different forum, but first you ensure that the communication skills. Is it okay? Fine. So someone may ask you, sir, what has gone wrong in the wearing? Unable. You must have the ability to make him understand with the technical words. Like many doctors, they have a communication skill to the patients. In the patient's language, they will explain what has happened. It's not that he will be using certain test names and all, ECR and all those. Getting my point? That is absolutely rubbish, I am telling you. So the good doctors will explain the phenomenon in a language is clearly understood by you. You're getting my point? So that is called, what is the third one? Third one, see the first these two qualities a supervisor may have. But as the supervisor may not have the third one, that's why he is not referred to as a manager. What is the third one? The third one is very important. He or she must know what others are doing, means other companies are doing. He should be aware of. He should be aware of that why financial performance may not continue forever, right? I must bring in, okay, say the environmental performance systems, because the other companies have been doing the great one. So these are the three qualities, remember. So knowledge about the benchmark systems, if any, disposal systems, waste management. Do you have the waste management? Now in a GIT based manufacturing, how many of you have heard GIT based manufacturing systems or Kanban systems or the Toyota production system? Yes, very good. So in the Toyota production system, you just make a note. In general, a production system, you have to identify the wastes, that is called muda. Then you have to control the muda, that is called unevenness, and you have to control the muri, MURI, that is called overburden. So these are the three. Now when you talk about the wastes, now in a typical production system, these wastes are classified under 7 categories. So you have to find out what are those 7 categories of waste. So this is the starting point. Are you getting my point? So why don't you, any exercise on environmental management, you starts with this, how to remove muda. Is it okay? How to reduce muda. That should be the starting point, and there should be some examples. Is it okay? It's not immediately you start talking about, this has become a fashion in many days. I am telling you that carbon footprint and all those, definitely they will come, but you start with all these issues initially. Getting my point? And then the waste management, cost of production, environment related cost elements. How many of you have seen the total cost equation? You have seen the profit and loss statement. You know the breakup, I presume. Is it okay? Like sales minus cost of goods sold, then administrative, administratives and selling overheads and all. Then what you can say that the profit before interest and tax, then the interest, and then you have the taxes, the profit after tax, and then this is a statement for a year or for 6 months and all, for a period of time, and then you get this data to put it in the balance sheet. Is it okay? So there is asset mentioned, asset, capital, liabilities, and there one is one particular term is retained earning. Is it okay? Have you seen the retained earning, that how much I have earned till now? Is it okay? And the retained earning for what? For what? For modernization. And to what extent this income which you have, this money which you have earned, to what extent it is used for controlling air pollution, right? Air contamination, then the effect on flora and fauna, then land degradation, and to say control the occupational health hazards. Getting my point? So that's why the retained earning is a must. Is it okay? Unless and until you have the retained earning, how do you so that reinvestment is required. And many a time what happens, the environmental, sometimes it is referred to as, like for the maintenance, it is accepted as a cost, maintenance particularly. But even the maintenance these days, we say it's not a cost. Ultimately, the value is generated out of this. So you have to have a mindset where this exercise is referred to as an investment return. Is it okay? This is the mindset I am telling you. If you say it's a cost, you will never implement environmental management. There are many such traders, there are many such situations. Okay. Cost of production, sample size and measurement mechanism. As I have been telling you, some data you get, but this is to be mentioned. Sir, you get this data, this is the carbon dioxide, this amount, 1 kg. How many times you have collected the data, right? What is the reliability of this estimate? Can there be any, instead of saying 2.1 kg, can you not is the point estimate? Why don't you have the interval estimate? It's more reliable. Otherwise, what is this confidence level? You are aware of the interval estimate and the point estimate. Normally, you will find they never mention about the interval estimate, and immediately you assume that the reliability is very, very low. If someone says it is between say 2 to 2.5 is the interval estimate, okay, so you will give more importance to this data. Instead, if someone says it is 2.14 or 2.4, is it okay? So always we go for the interval estimate, right? So what about the data analysis? Essentially, we focus on trend and correlation analysis. The trend analysis you are aware of, that means over the time periods, what was the scenario with respect to a particular parameter, okay, and what was the values 5 years back, and when you plot the data, this is the first exercise, what is its trend? Okay, there must be also cause and effect analysis. Cause and effect analysis is rigorous, and particularly here the cause and effect diagram you draw, there is a starting point with the process analysis basically. Is it okay? Not only for the cause enumeration, it is also for the process analysis you do. Is it okay? That means immediately you will come to know out of the several processes you have, they are linked, the dependent one, which one actually the most critical one. Is it okay? This is an application of cause and effect diagram. So analysis of trend in air pollution levels, I have specifically mentioned water consumption rate, different types of wastes, the land degradation rate, impact on flora and fauna over the years. Is it okay? There must be a baseline at the base year. Correlation study between processes, output versus the amount of waste, etc. So this is also a rigorous exercise. What is expected, any research effort, this sort of analysis is required. It's clear? Identification of the deficiencies. How do you do that? How do you do the deficiencies? How do you do? Like one particular exercise, sometimes this is a starting point, very simple one, that is called, like in the benchmarking exercise we do. Okay, benchmarking. The deficiencies, that means there must be some standard you must compare with. So initially what you do, you have a spider analysis, spider diagram you have to draw. Have you heard about the spider diagram? So you just keep it, you write down the spider diagram. It's very simple one, and this we refer to for the benchmarking exercises. So first you get the value, and that is to be compared with some standard. When you start comparing, this is called evaluation or assessment. Is it okay? So you have to refer to the certain standards. Now here the problem comes, right? So you have to study those standards and how they have developed those standards. As a researcher, you must study them. It's clear. It's not that any standards you start believing in. Maybe the standard is applicable in another country, in another situation. It may not be, already the standard has been modified in our country. So that data and the latest data, okay, or the latest standards you have to refer to. Improvement path charting, setting the targets and selection of alternatives. Now this is, it has to be done, right? The pollution level, you cannot jump on. Suppose your performance is very poor at this time and you are reaching to the say 0 level, okay. You can't expect that, okay, it cannot be wishful thinking that you try to reach there in 6 months time, or say it cannot be also 6 years time, but at least a reasonable time frame you should develop, a continuous improvement path. And here one point you must mention, there are two types of philosophies you have. One is the R&D philosophy, R&D, research and development, where if your research and development effort, okay, bears fruit, there could be a quantum jump in your performance. Is it okay? Horsepower changed to steam power. Immediately the output changed to 4 times, 5 times and all. So that is essentially a technology era of pure technology in 18th century, 17th, 18th, 19th century. Today it's not called era of pure technology. Getting my point? Means even if you employ the latest technology, there is no guarantee the performance will be improved. It's clear. So it's a very complex, so the interaction study you have to do, interaction design. So the improvement path charting, that means what you try to do, that is a continuous improvement, not R&D. So we believe in the concept of continuous improvement, which the Japanese has popularized with its name as Kaizen. You have heard this term Kaizen, no? So with the Kaizen also, in the systematic manner you can proceed and ultimately you can reach to the top. There are many such instances. So I always refer to a textbook written by Imai, IMAI, on Kaizen. Go through it. Okay, you'll have it is very nicely written, so many examples and all. Okay, so we believe in continuous improvement. If you if you say I am believing in R&D and there will be some real improvement, that may not happen also. Is it okay? So setting the targets and selection of the alternatives. Step 4, development of a comprehensive environmental performance measurement and evaluation system. Multi-criteria performance measurement systems or methodology. MCDM you are aware of, multi-objective and then multi-criteria. There are 2 methods in fact. Okay. Don't bluntly use. Is it okay? When first the criteria you have to select. Not using a technique for the technique's sake. No, never you do that. Is it okay? If it is applicable, then only you do. There are certain tests to be carried out before you use a particular tools and techniques. Is it okay? So, simulation modeling and sensitivity analysis, this is the other category, like identification of the critical factors, selection of alternative process technologies. So, here comes experts' opinions and your knowledge. Is it okay? Alternative process technologies. We are focusing on the process. Is it okay? Because the process is creating pollutions of different varieties. Identification of alternative raw materials. As I have been telling you, the total systems approach and the team effort is a must. Is it okay? So, the alternative raw materials, energy saving technologies and processes. Energy saving, the case I am citing. Okay. Waste reduction and waste removal, simulation of alternatives, preventive measures, sustainability modeling, sustainable performance. Okay. And then verification norms in respect of environmental sustainability, economic sustainability and social sustainability. That means whatever may be your economic performance today, whatever may be your environmental performance today, if you are not sure about the social sustainability, okay, if the society doesn't accept you today or tomorrow, you have to die. And this social response, okay, you will not find, they become violent on us. Okay, suddenly you will find they will silently, they will take a decision and they will just, take out their hands from you suddenly. So, social sustainability, they are watching you, the perception, and suddenly you will find that this product is not selling. Is it okay? They always work silently. You may think that here are the best possible systems, but others may not think. So, if it is not socially, ultimate objective is socially sustainable. There are hundreds of cases you will find, hundreds of case studies. Okay, the company runs for 50 years, 60 years. Suddenly, certain deficiencies are pointed out. The company is gone. Is it okay? The society has rejected the. After all, it's a company, nothing else. Nothing else. One company comes, another company goes. Right? You are getting my point. So, this is the thing. So, verification norms in respect of validation of the measurement and evaluation systems. How many validation approaches you are aware of? How many? If you go through the text, you will find at least 10 such approaches you will have, validation approaches. So, particularly for such cases, what sort of validation technique you need to use? Implementation of the framework. So, first is implementation. What kind of investment is required? Investment is required. Is it okay? Next one is ROI, return on investment. Then the project execution. This is very, very important. Project execution, project management norms. Installation and operation of the processes of the plant. How do you do that? Is it okay? Right? Installations and operations of the plant and continuous monitoring. And you should be aware of also that the process life cycles. So, in the process life cycles, you should be aware of what are the elements. First element is the design. Next one is installation and commissioning. The third one is operations, maintenance, then decommissioning, okay, and then dismantle. So, everywhere you carry out certain activities, everywhere. Obviously, during operations and maintenance, this factory may continue for 20 years, 25 years. Is it okay? But while you go for decommissioning, there are many activities you do. So, how many such activities are environment friendly? So, you must have a total view, right? So, you have some 10 plants at this point in time, your company. Now, suddenly you will find that the 2 plants are getting changed, they are to be decommissioned. A new plant is to be commissioned, that the process cycle starts. Getting my point? So, it is not only just operations you look at, it is already the installation, during installation time, certain activities you have carried out and you didn't bother about the many say environmental issues, and ultimately when you are operation stage or the maintenance issues, you cannot rectify the situation. Do you my point? So this is the problem with the old factories. Is it okay? Some 70 years back. Otherwise the product is all right. Now today, when the environmental conditions are imposed, their hands are up. They say, yes, we cannot do. Because already it is inbuilt. So that's why whenever the new project starts, is it okay? If the management is aware of the environmental issues, is it okay? So always you will find that the total process cycle will be environmental friendly. Is it okay? But if they miss it, suppose the attitude is just has not changed, and suppose installation and commissioning of the plant, this is the power plant. Is it okay? You don't bother about all these issues. Then again, the system becomes crippled. And when today you do not bother about the environmental aspects, is it okay? Previously you get the waste and you dump it anywhere. Is it okay? Today, where is the space? They are all covered with the human settlements. I think my point. 50 years back, in an isolated place, you used to have your factory. There is no human settlements. Today, everywhere there is a human settlement. Is it okay? So, the system is forcing you. There is no other alternative. Otherwise, your license will be cancelled. As simple as that. Okay, so continuous monitoring. I close it 5 to 5. So, these are the codes. So, we are closing the session today. Just you go through these codes. Come from the finest minds ever born in the history of mankind. So, Vincent van Gogh, who is he? Mabel Newcomer, have you heard her name? She is an educationist, well known, during 30s, 40s and all, US, from US. This, her statement is very important to go through. Do not mistake activity for achievement. I take my point. And this is true for environmental management. And the last one is the Charles Darwin, Okay. So, thank you so much. Right. So, today if you have any queries, so just you write down all these details, and definitely we will have some interaction sessions later on. Normally what we do towards the end of any such programs when we